So during a recession, what is one way governments try to encourage growth? So let's take a look at the question. The answer choices by increasing unemployment benefits, by requiring firms to maintain production, by stopping government spending, or by eliminating all tax breaks. So I would say that the correct answer here is, well, we have to think about, uh, what is this question asking us about? And what it's really asking us about is fiscal policy, right? It's basically saying when the government is dealing with a recession or recessionary gap, the government is going to engage in fiscal policy, and that's essentially saying, how do I get money into the hands, or how do I stimulate the economy, right? How do I increase GDP? So one way is to there's two ways that the government is normally going to address this problem. The first way is going to be through increased government spending, right? And so basically saying if the government purchases things, that's going to that from the private sector, but that money goes into the hands of individuals, and those individuals go turn around and spend that money on in elsewhere. And so when the government spends a lot of money, it's stimulating the economy by this multiplier effect of getting people to go out and spend. Right? Because increasing spending, increasing consumption is one of the biggest ways that you can address a recession. That's one way. The other way, a little bit more indirect, but still fiscal policy, is to reduce taxes. And so what reducing taxes does is it lets people and individuals have more money on hand to work with. And that means they will go out and spend more. And so we're going to look for an answer choice that is along one of those two lines. So let's take a look at number one. So by increasing unemployment benefits. So one outcome of a recession is increased unemployment, right? We know that that happens when we have a recession. And unemployment benefits are basically money that the government provides to those who are unemployed while during a recession in order to help them between looking for jobs. And so, one point of providing unemployment benefits is that if people are getting the money to in their pockets, and they're going to be more likely to go out and spend more. So that actually is one way to increase benefits for stimulate the economy by getting money into the hands of the people. The one caveat I have, so I would say like this is a good answer. The one caveat I have is the other impact of increasing unemployment benefits is to reduce the motivation for unemployed people to go out and look for another job because the cost of unemployment is now lower, right? If I'm being unemployed and I receive no money from the government, then I have a very, very high motivation and incentive to go out and look for a new job because I need money. If unemployment benefits are high, then even if I don't find a job, I still make a certain amount of money, and that might decrease my motivation to get back into the labor force or to find another job, and that might be bad for growth. So I don't, it depends on how you're looking at this. I would still say that this is probably the best answer. Let's look at the other ones just to make sure. Number two, by requiring firms to maintain production. You know, I don't know if this is something that governments do. Governments rarely mandate that firms continue to produce, especially in a free market. That's not something that we normally do unless it's a time of emergency, and a recession does not usually count as that. And so I don't think this is, properly a tool that governments are often going to use to encourage growth. It's not one that we normally see, and it's not one I've seen advocated for by any like economics textbooks or anything like that. So I don't think that's going to be the best answer. Number three, by stopping government spending. So this is actually the opposite of what we want to do, right? We don't want to stop government spending. If government were to stop spending, that would make the recession way worse. Because if government stops spending, then even less money flows to the private sector, and even less money is going to go out, and less people are going to go out and exchange goods and services in the market, right? So we definitely know three is not the right answer. Number four, by eliminating all tax breaks. And so again, this is the opposite of what we want to do, right? If we eliminate all tax breaks, so what is a tax break, right? A tax break is when I get to pay less in my taxes because I can claim a dependent, or maybe I have a small business and it didn't make enough money. Like these are all reasons why I might pay less in my taxes than I normally would. If we eliminate those tax breaks, what that means is people end up paying more taxes, right? Because there are less ways to reduce your taxable income. There's less ways to reduce your taxes overall. And so by eliminating tax breaks, what you're essentially doing is you're increasing taxes. And so that is going to take away money from the private sector, take away money from individuals, and that will be bad for the economy as well. So I would say, if I, for this question, A is probably the best answer, because by increasing unemployment benefits, give people more money, and that money can be used in the market, even if the person doesn't have a job. So let's take a look at the answer choice provided by the the previous tutor. So basically, they chose by eliminating all tax breaks. So again, this is not going to be the right answer, and we're going to take a look at the explanation just to see what maybe went wrong here. So the previous answer was that by eliminating all tax breaks, that would stimulate growth. So a recession is a period of low business activity due to lower aggregate demand in the market, causing a loss in profitability for firms. Not exactly right. Like a recession, or what we refer to as a recessionary gap, maybe is when aggregate demand falls under long run, like the short run aggregate demand equilibrium is less than the long run aggregate supply might be. And so that is going to cause there to be this recessionary gap. And that's normally what recession is caused by. So typically it's defined as an economic contraction indicated by a declining GDP growth rate for 2 consecutive quarters. An economy can only be rescued from a period of recession if the aggregate demand in the market is encouraged through increased government spending and investments or reducing taxes. So yes, this is correct. Again, saying the economy can only be rescued through that method is wrong, because we also knowing that we have fiscal policy, which talks about government spending and taxes, but we also have monetary policy, which talks about the effect that the Fed can have on the money supply, and that is also going to be a way that you can come back from a recession. So that's not quite accurate, actually. Increasing unemployment benefits will increase the incentive to not work. This will cause an increase in the unemployment rate. So again, this is something that I mentioned, which is why I don't think it's a perfect answer. That being said, I don't think that this tutor has considered the possibility of stimulating spending by increasing the amount of money that people have in times of unemployment. And we also know that historically, we have seen unemployment benefits increase during times of recessions. So we know that this is something that governments do to address a high unemployment and increase growth during recessions. So maybe that's not necessarily the best explanation there. A regulation that requires firms to maintain production will force firms out of the market. This is likely to be true if you require firms to maintain production, even though there's less demand. That's usually going to cause firms to suffer a loss because they're not being able to sell as much of their products relative to how much they're producing. So you should let firms optimally decide, where marginal revenue, marginal costs are equal, and that's what they should be deciding off of, not off of government regulation. The third answer choice, if government spending ceases to exist, there will be an increase in the unemployment rate due to a lack of investments in the economy. Again, pretty good explanation. If government stops spending, then the economy is going to be way, way even worse than if the government just kept spending neutral. Elimination of all tax breaks is one of the ways in which government tries to encourage growth. Reduced taxes increases the real income of a consumer. So I think the tutor just misinterpreted what eliminating tax breaks means. It is not eliminating taxes. It is eliminating exemptions from taxes, right? So by eliminating the exemptions from taxes, you're effectively increasing the effective tax rate. So this is the point of confusion. So let's make sure this is modified to reflect the correct solution. So let's first let's change this sentence here. an economy can only be rescued from a period of recession if the aggregate demand in the market is encouraged through government spending or reducing taxes. We know that's not the case. We say an economy, a recession can be can be addressed through both fiscal and monetary policy. Governments engaging in fiscal policy will typically either increase government spending or reduce taxes with the goal of increasing overall spending / consumption in the economy. Okay, so that's clarified. So let's take a look at let's write the correct answer first. We said the correct answer should be 1 or I, by increasing unemployment benefits. So increasing unemployment benefits is one way that governments often try to increase growth during a recession. The unemployment benefits are refer to monies received by those who are unemployed, by increasing the flow of benefits to those who are unemployed, and knowing that unemployment is high during a recession, the government can increase the amount of disposable income in the economy, which would lead to higher consumption / spending. That would stimulate the economy. So that's our explanation for why answer choice 1 is correct. So let's take a look at answer choice 2. Requiring firms to maintain production. We can just use the same logic that the previous tutor replied, because this was correct. This is also correct. And then elimination of tax breaks would increase the amount that people need to pay in taxes by taking away exemptions that were previously available. This effectively increases taxes and decreases the amount of money in the hands of individuals. This would further contract the economy rather than stimulate growth. Okay, so I think this kind of answer is a little bit more adequate for explaining what is probably happening in this scenario. Again, I do want to note that increasing unemployment benefits, mixed bag. Most likely, it's going to increase spending. On the other hand, we do know that it can slow recovery by reducing the amount of by reducing the incentive to go out and look for work. That being said, we might interpret this as, if we increase unemployment benefits, we would encourage growth in the short term, but we might lengthen the time it would take to come out of a recession relative to other approaches to stimulating growth, such as increasing government spending or decreasing taxes, which are probably more directly efficient and aren't going to suffer from this incentive problem. But we do know that eliminating all tax breaks is definitely not going to encourage growth. So I'm going to mark this as incorrect.